Pep Guardiola becomes the president of FC Barcelona.
Leave the football before the football leaves you. The football's left them.
I wouldn't hurt myself.
I've spent the last 9 months going back in time, unearthing football predictions from the deepest, darkest pits of the internet, and the results were shocking. And some of the very worst, which ultimately tell us whether football is really predictable. Welcome back to the Football Time Machine. As you guys know, I've been going back in time, reviewing some of the best football predictions on the internet, and along the way I've been asking you guys for your predictions. But today I thought I'd use all of that knowledge I've gained from reviewing these predictions and give 15 of my own predictions about football for the next 5 to 10 years. Much like the Irish guys' prediction videos from 5 years ago, which we've reacted to on this channel as well, it's clearly very hard to predict the future of the sport. But I've been in the thick of it for the past 6 to 9 months, and I think I've given some modest and mature predictions for the game around the year 2030 in 5 years time. 2025 right around the corner. We're going into the second half of the decade, and it feels like we're going into a new generation of footballers around this time as well. So let's get right into this. Entry, please.
Entry, please.
Starting off with some pretty basic ones. Erling Haaland sets the new all-time Champions League scoring record. At 30 years old, Erling Haaland surpasses Cristiano Ronaldo's old record and sets a whole new record in the new format with over 140 goals. After his success at Barcelona, he's now at Paris Saint-Germain. Haaland's efficiency continues to redefine striker expectations in the modern game. Erling Haaland doesn't seem like the type of player who'll stay at Manchester City his whole career, and I feel like a move to Barcelona in the next few years makes sense, potentially to revolutionise El Clasico and have that Mbappe v Haaland that everyone's always wanted in the modern game. Two great strikers in the 2020s going head to head for Real Madrid and Barcelona. But in his later years, I feel like that PSG move is written in the stars. And with all that time spent at some of the best clubs in Europe, with all of them performing at high levels, I feel like it's a given that Haaland is going to set the new all-time top scoring record in the Champions League. You're always going to have those striker debates, and the next one will be Erling Haaland and Cristiano Ronaldo, who are both top scorers of their own Champions League format in different periods. But I do feel like Erling might have an easier ride given how many games they now play. Jude Bellingham becomes England's most capped player. Bellingham made his debut for England at 17 in the Euros in like 2020, I'm pretty sure. With all that talent he has, he's bound to break records in that England team, overtaking Peter Shilton's record of only 125 caps. And even if it doesn't work out at Real Madrid, I think he's bound to captain any team he goes, like Liverpool. I feel like Liverpool probably would be his club of choice. Both Manchester clubs I don't see suiting him, but this is like in the next 3 or 4 years, so everything could be different by then. So what's stopping Jude Bellingham winning the Ballon d'Or in 2028 when he captains Liverpool to the Premier League and wins the Euros for England in their next home tournament? Kylian Mbappe finally wins the Ballon d'Or at 30 years old. The kid was touted to win the Ballon d'Or as a teenager, but 10 years later, he still hasn't won it, and with the competition growing so fierce, it's going to take a big year for him to win the award. I think it would be a bit of a crime if Kylian Mbappe never won the Ballon d'Or in this era, given that he was putting up numbers against Lionel Messi at a really young age in the early 2020s, and even 2018 World Cup, they won the World Cup. So if he went his whole career and didn't win a Ballon d'Or, it would be criminal, because I reckon in the last couple of years, he probably was the best player in the world. So to be the best player in the world and not win the Ballon d'Or wouldn't really make sense to me. I know you have players like Neymar, but he was never the best player in the world because Ronaldo and Messi were there. Kylian actually felt like he was in the last couple of years, especially 2022. So I think now he's at Real Madrid, and once he settles, it will happen eventually. AI-driven tactical analysis revolutionizes football. And by 2030, I feel like big clubs like Bayern Munich and Manchester City will rely heavily on managers being able to make tactical substitutions and tweaks during the game. I think new laws have to be invented as the game evolves, because at one point do we say you can't have AI managers dictating how a team plays, and it makes sense to have in-game technology aid you with your tactics, but how far does this really go before you almost begin cheating? I don't know, it feels kind of wrong to have AI so heavily involved, but it also feels so right because it is a fluid game. Pep Guardiola becomes the president of FC Barcelona. After that glittering managerial career and rumours of his next club that he'll manage in 2027, I think he does one better and transitions into an executive role. Because what else can he do? He's managed the biggest clubs in some of the top 5 leagues. The national teams don't feel like they're calling him yet, and unless it was a team like PSG or Inter AC Milan, I don't know if that feels right for him. So does the next step mean that having even more influence as a president or even working for FIFA feels like a bit more of a natural transition for someone as good as Pep is? He'll be able to implement his core values in that youth first revolution, revitalizing La Masia and being able to reclaim Barcelona and Spanish dominance in European football. African teams dominate the quarterfinals of the World Cup. With improved infrastructure, coaching and talent development, and the fact that the biggest national teams will have such hotly contested starting 11s, African players will choose to play for their heritage nation once again, helping to re-establish African football at the highest level. African nations like Nigeria, Morocco, Senegal all reach World Cup quarterfinals in the 2030s, and one of them might make it to the final in that time. Nigeria could literally field a team of strikers right now with Osimhen, Lookman, Iheanacho, Boniface. Like, they've got so much talent at the moment, and it does feel like there's this transition period going on in African football where they might be ready to take that next step at World Cups. Women's football integrates mixed gender training academies. Now this sounds bonkers, but with an idea to accelerate development in the women's game, FIFA mandates mixed gender youth academies for players under 16 by 2030, and this would lead to a generation of high quality women's players who are having to keep up with the physical demands of the boys' games when they're at a younger level. They would have unparalleled technical skills and physicality because they were having to push themselves a lot harder than the women before them. Germany leads the world with the first fully automated VAR system in their league. By 2030, I think the Bundesliga might be the first league to have fully automated VAR systems. Like what we saw at the 2022 World Cup, the leagues will finally come round to it, and it eliminates those delays and controversies made by human error. And this sets the benchmark for leagues worldwide. Benjamin Sesko and Victor Gyökeres Premier League Golden Boot race. At 6'5" and combining that power with finesse, Sesko becomes one of the Prem's best strikers at Manchester City, only to be matched goal for goal by Victor Gyökeres, who's established himself at Manchester United in a new era of Premier League strikers. Gyökeres is pretty much the best striker in Europe right now, and he likely will be moving somewhere this summer. Do we think he's going to follow Amorim to United? I think that's the most obvious choice, unless Arsenal come in with a massive bid. Liverpool don't need him, Chelsea don't need him, Real Madrid don't need him. Arsenal may need him, and that's the only other team that I could say potentially might be in for him next year. Romeo Lavia becomes the Premier League's best defensive midfielder. It's quite clear when Lavia plays this season, he's transforming Chelsea's defence. That combination of tactical intelligence, calmness on the ball, and technical skill earns him some comparisons to Claude Makelele and even Sergio Busquets. The late 20s sees the Chelsea midfielder sit just behind Andre Santos and Ibrahim Rabaj. Rabaj is the second coming of Lionel Messi. I'm serious. And this isn't just a Chelsea fan speaking. Watch him play. The movement, the dip of the shoulders, the low centre of gravity, the goal scoring, he plays anywhere in the front line. This kid is unreal, and Chelsea are very lucky to have him. Warren Zaire-Emery and Bradley Barcola lead France to World Cup glory in 2030. The current heartbeat of that PSG midfield looks mature beyond his years, and he will captain a new golden generation in France to their third World Cup title in 2030, beating Spain in their own backyard in the Santiago Bernabeu. Marcus Rashford moves to Milan in 2027. For his 30th birthday, Marcus Rashford wins a Scudetto in his first season for Milan, and he continues the trend of English players going abroad and finding success. A place like Milan or Paris, PSG is still on the cards. I feel like one of those clubs Marcus really needs to move to, because it's another chance with another manager at Manchester. He might stay there because he loves living in England, but if he should go somewhere, it should be Milan or PSG. Lamine Yamal will continue to wow people when he scores the first goal in the World Cup final in 2030. He'll earn that nickname, the Magician, in that 2030 World Cup, but it won't be enough to beat that golden generation France have in the 2030 final. I think it's a given that Spain reached the final in their home home/6-country World Cup in 2030. And France, I mean, so many teams are going through a golden generation around this time, like England as well. You can't write them off, but if we take England bottle into account, France and Spain should be the final in 2030, because look at their teams. Disgusting. Transfer prices plateau around 100 million. After years of big clubs playing around with FFP, new laws are put into place. And with changes to contract laws, in 2029 I suspect there'll be some huge court case over a contract that was terminated midway through the player's time at a club. This leads to clubs paying less for players with fear that the player is able to terminate his own contract mid-deal. This leads to players being paid more, but creates a whole new problem in itself. And then price caps are talked about in the 2030s. I think we all thought, like the Irish guy did, that transfer prices were only going to go up, but I feel like they're going to plateau. I know there's been height after height of transfer, but I feel like it's going to incrementally slowly go up rather than how dramatically the Mbappe and Neymar transfers went. There's not many players right now who look like they're going to break the transfer record with contracts going down. Maybe Haaland, maybe Bellingham to Liverpool in a couple of years' time. I don't know. There's been rumours of new contract laws coming in, and I feel like that will nullify transfer prices. La Liga has a new fairy tale champion. La Liga are the only top 5 league who haven't had an out of nowhere non-top team win the championship in the past 20 years. So I think it will happen sooner or later, and I think it will be La Liga. A new popular style of football dominates the 2030s. Football has begun to lose its magic slightly in recent times. And with fans choosing to pay more attention to the EFL or non-league equivalents, football games like the Kings League have begun to pop up. One of these new football game styles will go stratospheric because of the inclusivity of normal people, bringing the essence of football back to the fans, which thus raises the game's popularity through connectivity online.
Sometimes it may be good, sometimes it may be shit.
Thank you so much for watching. These are my predictions for the year 2030. And it's going to be so cool to go back and look at these predictions like we have done with all the predictions from the past. I wanted to do this as a bit of a time capsule so that in 5 years' time, if we're still kicking it on this channel, we'll be able to come back and actually react to what I got right. I think these were pretty sensible predictions. What do you think? Keep hitting me up with all your predictions in the comments. Thank you for all the support. I'm going for a bit of a blip on the channel right now because I've been away for a few weeks. So keep sharing, keep liking, keep commenting, and that helps me out. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you later. Peace.